What is up, mathletes? Welcome back to another episode of Math with Dr. Math. And today we're going to talk about that F word. That's right, fractions. Have you heard about them? All right, folks, so let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to be looking at adding fractions today. And we're going to look at a few different ways of doing this. All right, so stay with me here. All right, here's one popular way of adding fractions. It's just one of many ways. So if you don't like it, just hit Control-Alt-Delete and let's move on to the next example. But here we go. What you're gonna do is you're gonna multiply 2 times 4, right? You cross multiply, and so you get 2 times 4 is 8. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna multiply the 3 and the 1, and you're gonna get 3 right there. All right, so what that's gonna do is that's gonna create our numerator, the top number. And then to get our denominator, right, that number on the bottom, what you do is you multiply the bottom number and the bottom number, the denominator and denominator. So 3 times 4, that leaves us with 12. And there you have it, folks. So when you add that up, that gives us our fraction of 11/12. All right, so this is method 1 of adding fractions. Give it a try, tell us what you think. All right, let's look at doing the same problem, but let's take a different approach. So approach number 2. Typically when we're adding fractions, we want to get the common denominator. All right, you will need that denominator to be the same. And what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about the least common denominator. And I have a video linked below that shows you how to find that. So make sure you subscribe and like this video for more great content. So here we go. What you're going to do is you're going to write all the multiples of 3 and 4. Don't worry about the numbers on top. Focus on those numbers in the bottom, the denominators. So I do 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and you could go on and on and on. All right, so go ahead and list a few, and then go ahead and list a few of the multiples of 4, 8, 12, 16, and you could go on and on and on, right? And what you're looking for is the first number that appears in both of those lists. So here you could see that the least common multiple is 12. So our goal is to rewrite these fractions so that they both have a 12 on the bottom, because once they both have that same denominator, then you can add them. So let's go ahead and let me rewrite this. So this is going to be 2/3. I'm going to leave myself a little bit of space, and then 1/4. I'm going to leave myself a little bit of space. So what we want is you want to rewrite this so that this denominator and this denominator have a 12 on bottom. So you ask yourself, what am I going to have to multiply 3 by to get 12? Well, you multiply by 4. And what am I going to multiply the 4 by to get 12? Well, you're going to multiply that by 3. But remember, whatever you multiply the bottom by, you do the same exact thing to the top. So I'm also going to have to multiply the top by 4. And likewise over here, I'm going to have to multiply the top by 3. So write that down. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top, right? Because essentially, you're multiplying by a fancy 1, because 4 divided by 4 is 1. So we're not really changing anything. That's what's nice about this. All right, folks, so here we go. 2 times 4 is 8. So you're going to get 8/12 for the first fraction. And then 3 times 1 is going to give us 3/12 for the second fraction. So let's go ahead and rewrite this. So you get 8/12 plus 3/12. And that's perfect because now these denominators are the same. And because these denominators are the same, now we're allowed to go ahead and add the numerators, those numbers on top. So you get 11/12. All right, so this is method number 2. And here's what's great. Some of you are really sharp and fast with your multiplications. So if you could look at this and you could see that, oh, you know what? I could turn both of these into 12. You're able to see that. Some of us, it takes us a little longer. So just work on your multiplications, and that's going to make this so much easier. And many problems that we have in math actually deal with our multiplication table. So let's make sure we practice. Let's do another problem. So what happens when we have 3 fractions? Well, what's nice is it doesn't matter if you have 3 fractions, 4 fractions, 20 fractions. The idea is always the same. So the big idea is you always like my videos and subscribe. Always. All right. So let's go ahead and let's do this. All right. So again, let me pretend I'm not that great with multiplication. One thing we could do, I don't recommend it always, but we could multiply all our denominators together. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Let's go ahead and multiply all these denominators together. All right, so let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to multiply 5 times 3 times 4. And when I do that, I'm going to get 60, right? So I'm going to turn each one of these denominators into a 60. All right, so let's go ahead and I have to ask myself this question. What should I multiply 5 by to get 60? That might take some work. So you could see, oh man, I really need to know my multiplication. You could also just do 60 divided by 5 and that'll give you the number. So we get 12. All right, so we're gonna multiply top and bottom of the first fraction by 12. If you ever see me using that little dot, that just means we're multiplying. All right, same thing. 3, what are you going to multiply this 3 by to get 60? Well, you're going to multiply it times 20. So times 20 and times 20. All right. If you didn't want to do it this way, what you could think about is here, this has a 3. What is the 3 missing? Well, it's missing the 5 and the 4. So you can multiply it by 5 and 4, but that's the same thing as multiplying it by 20. All right. But just so you see that. And this 4 is missing the 3 and it's missing the 5. So it's really missing 15. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 15. All right. And when I do that, notice I'm going to get that 60. So that's your first step. Always make sure that the denominators are the same. Whenever you're dealing with fractions, later on in math, you can use this over and over again. So make sure you understand this. All right. So let's go ahead and let's rewrite. Let's multiply all 3 of those fractions. So 12 times 3, that's going to give us 36 over 60. And then we have 1 times 20, that's nice. That's 20 over 60. And then we have our last one, which leaves us with 45 over 60. And again, in your notes, make sure you tell yourself all the denominators always have to be the same. Right? I can't say that enough. So let's go ahead and add our numerators, and what you're going to see we're going to end up with is 101, right, over 60. Once we add 36 plus 20 plus 45. All right, so we're left with 101 over 60. And that's it, folks. All right, so this is a method that we could always use as well. Is it my preferred method? No, but it always works. So all we did is we multiplied all 3 denominators times each other, right, to get that common denominator. But let's check out a different method. All right, follow me. All right, so for this method here, instead of multiplying like we did before, the 5 times the 6 times the 3, because if I were to do that, 5 times 6 is 30. 30 times 3 gives me 90. That's going to give us a lot more work at the end of the day. So what I want to do is, again, I want to practice my multiplications, because if I become really good at these multiplications, I could see that I could turn each one of these numbers into 30, right? 30 I could divide by 5, it's 6. 30 I could divide by 6 is 5. 30 I could divide by 3 is 10. So what you want to do is you want to pick the smallest number that you could turn all 3 of those denominators into. In this case, it's 30. So let's see here. What do I have to multiply 5 by to get 30? Well, we just said 6. So what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. What do I multiply that 6 by to get 30? Well, you just said 5. So we multiply top and bottom by 5. What do we multiply that 3 by to get 30? That's right, we multiply by 10. So again, please practice your multiplication tables, or else you're really going to end up like this guy. All right, So let's go ahead and multiply this out. So we get 12 over 30 plus 5 over 30 plus 20 over 30. So now each one of those fractions has the denominator of 30. So we could go ahead and add them all up. So we get 12 plus 5, which is 17, plus 20. All right, so we're left with 37 over 30. So in this case, we end up with an improper fraction, and that's okay. In a future video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at writing improper fractions as mixed numbers. And if you really want to see that video, go ahead and comment down below and let our team know you want that video right away. All right, let's do one more example for the West Coast. Here we go. What happens when one of the numbers is not a fraction? This is when you just give up in math. No, we're just messing. So what you're gonna do is I'm gonna rewrite this as 3 over 12 plus whatever whole number they give you. In this case, it's a 1. You always write it as a fraction. So we're just gonna write it as 1 and you divide it by 1. All right, so if this were a 7, you would rewrite it as 7 over 1. All right, if this were a 2, you would write it as 2 over 1. If it were a 3, you would write it as 3 over 1. Okay, I'm sure you get the hint now. All right, why did we do this? Because now that we have two fractions, we know we need the common denominator. In this case, the common denominator is 12, right? I could turn that 1 into a 12. So I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 12 here. So let's see what we get. So we end up with 3 over 12 plus 12 over 12. All right, our denominators are the same, perfect, and we get 12. And the numerators, you get 3 plus 12, which is 15. And there you have it. You went ahead and you added fractions. Later on, like I spoke about earlier, you could think about how can I simplify this, right? Because notice, I could divide both these by 3. And this would be the same thing as, if I divided it by 3, this would be the same thing as 5/4. And then we could change that improper fraction, we could change it to a mixed number. But again, that's for a later video. So hopefully this was very helpful for you folks. Make sure you comment down below. Tell us what kind of videos you want, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.